Walk down any boat yard from Stuart, Florida to Anacortes, Washington this spring and you will see them. Big production catamarans up on jack stands, beautiful from 30 feet away, wearing price tags north of $400,000. Right behind them in the cheap row by the back fence sits a plainer cat with an unglamorous name and half the price. And more often than not, the plain one is the better boat. What nobody at the boat show will tell you is why. The expensive one can have a foam cord hole that hides 50,000 to 70,000 of rot you cannot see from the dock. The cheap one has solid glass under the waterline and nothing to hide. By the time we are done, you will be able to walk that same row and rank every catamaran on it from the one that will outlast you to the one that will bankrupt you. So, let me show you how a marine surveyor actually sorts them. This ranking does not start with brand names. It starts with how a catamaran actually fails. 3 things decide it: where the hull is solid and where it is. Cord, what spins the propellers, a sail drive leg or an honest shaft, and who built the boat, and in what years, because the same badge can mean 2 very different boats a decade apart. I have walked these docks and pulled these panels, so I am not going to give you a brochure. I am going to give you the verdict brand by brand, the way the guy who turns the wrenches would say it to his own brother. And the single thing that sorts good cats from money pits is where the builder put the foam above the waterline. A foam course saves weight, and that is fine. Below the waterline, where the boat lives in the ocean and takes the groundings, foam is where the trouble hides. The old surveyors learned this the hard way decades ago. Water finds a path through a poorly bedded fitting, gets into the core, and the damage spreads where no flashlight can see it. So, every verdict that follows comes back to that one line on the hull and whether the builder respected it. Let us start at the top with the boats that earned the trust. At the very top sit the bluewater names. An Outremer is built with solid hand-laid glass below the waterline, the part that takes the grounding and the impact. And the yard talks openly about a 50-year design life. Right beside it is the Antares. Shaft drive instead of sail drives, skeg-protected rudders, and a resale price so stubborn that the boat itself is the proof. When a used cat sells for $100,000 more than its competition, the market is telling you something about how it was built. A privilege belongs up here, too. A heavier blue water boat that owners describe like a bank vault that happens to float. What ties this whole top shelf together is not the price. It is the way they are built. Solid glass where the ocean touches the boat, real structural bulkheads instead of glued-in partitions, and drivetrains chosen for the next 20 years rather than the next charter season. That is what you are paying for. And that is why these boats are still trading hands strong when flashier names are rotten on jack stands. Here is the catch, and I'll be straight with you about it. Most of these top-tier boats run well past $500,000 used. They set the ceiling. They are not the boat the average retiree is going to write a check for, and pretending otherwise would be the same lie the brokers tell. So drop down one shelf into the boats real people actually buy, and the picture gets interesting. This is the strong middle. A Nautatech is a lighter, better sailing cat with foam infused hulls. And the part that matters, it can be ordered with a shaft drive instead of a sail drive. That single option takes the most common systems worry on a production cat off the table before you even start. A Seawind has put holes around the world and built them with a full-length fiberglass joint where the deck meets the hull, which is exactly where cheaper cats crack. And these are not delicate boats. Seawinds have crossed oceans and ridden out multi-day blows in open water, which is the kind of resume you cannot fake with marketing. The trade-off is that some of the cheaper fittings and finishes age faster than a premium boat of the same year. So you budget for cosmetics, not for structure. That is a fair trade at the price. And a Fontaine Paget from the last 15 years is a genuinely well-made sailor's boat, better resale than most, awards on the wall. But you have to check the years. And here is the detail almost everybody misses. The Fontaine Paget's built in the early 2000s during the years the yard was switching its layup. Process had a run of osmotic blistering, not all of them, but enough that a smart buyer scopes it, gets the moisture readings, and prices the risk in before signing. That is the difference between a verdict and a brochure. Two more belong in this conversation before we go lower. A Bali is the comfort play with a solid foredeck instead of a trampoline and a garage door back end that buyers love. The design is clever, but it is also young. So, there is not yet a 30-year track record on how those holes age. A Katana sits at the other end, a ladder performance boat with dagger boards and carbon reinforcement, genuinely blue water, but those dagger boards are one more system to maintain, and one more thing a lazy survey will skip. Good boats, both. Just know which one you are buying and why. Now, here is the reality for most of the people watching this. You are not shopping the $500,000 shelf. You are looking somewhere between $150,000 and $500,000. And in that range, the choice almost always comes down to the same fork in the road. On one side, a comfortable charter-bred boat with a famous name and a couple of asterisks you have to survey for. On the other side, a plainer, tougher boat that nobody put in a glossy ad, sitting quietly for less money 'cause it never had a marketing budget. Almost everybody walks toward the famous name. The sharp ones walk the other way. Which brings me to the one I would actually buy. Not the one with the prettiest brochure. The one I would put my own retirement money into. The Manta 42. Built in Florida, not famous, and quietly one of the most honestly constructed cruising cats a normal person can afford. Solid glass below the waterline, so there is no foam down there to soak up the ocean. 2 real collision bulkheads in each hull, the kind of thing you only appreciate the day you hit a log. And shaft drives, which means there is no rubber sail drive seal waiting to become your problem. You can buy a good one for somewhere between $200,000 and $320,000. That is back of the yard money that was built to cross oceans. And here is the part that matters to a retiree more than to anybody else. The systems are simple enough that you can actually work on them yourself. The parts are the kind you can still source, and the owners stick together in a tight little group that'll answer the phone when you are stuck in some anchorage with a problem. These boats have crossed oceans and circled the globe in the hands of regular couples, not professional crews. That is the whole dream right there. One boat you can understand, fix, and trust instead of a rolling repair bill with a famous name on the hull. So, here is the part you came for. If I had to spend my own retirement savings on one catamaran in this price range and live aboard it for the next 10 years, I would buy a Manta 42 and not lose a single night of sleep over it. And that is not me being sentimental about an old boat. That is the survey talking, and the solid glass talking, and the resale value talking. Every one of those things points at the same plain hull in the back of the yard, the one almost nobody else circled. If this is the kind of straight talk nobody else gives you, hit subscribe. There are more boats coming, and the next batch names names. So, that is the boat I would trust with my own money. Now, here's the one the experts in your comments are already typing about, and the story behind it is worse than the price tag. I put what I look for in writing, including the one number that scares people most. A foam cord hull with hidden delamination can run $50,000 to $70,000 to put right, and a cheap moisture meter catches it before you ever sign. The whole buy, own, and sell system is in the link below for less than 1 hour of a surveyor's time. Music back to the rankings. Now we are into the charter-bred boats, and this is where you have to keep your head 'cause the badge alone tells you almost nothing. Start with the Leopard, built in South Africa by Robertson and Kane, the same boats that fill the moorings and Sunsail charter fleets. The build is generally solid, and the marine press has praised the line for years. The current generation uses high-density foam coring above the waterline with solid laminate down low, which is the right way to do it. But there is a documented case every smart buyer should know. One owner of a recent Leopard 45 had the bridge deck ultrasonically scanned and found sections that were never properly resin infused at the factory, so the laminate inside was dry and not doing its job. The builder eventually stood behind the boat and repaired it. The lesson is not that Leopards are bad. The lesson is that even a respected charter brand can ship a build defect you will only catch with a moisture meter and an ultrasonic scan of the bridge deck and the crossbeams. Survey it like you expect to find something, and you usually will not get burned. Then there is a lagoon, and I want to be fair because the experts will hold me to it. A lagoon is comfortable, roomy, and heavy, and for coastal cruising and weekending, it is a perfectly good boat that has made a lot of families happy. But there is one model and one stretch of years that the smart buyers treat with both hands on the wheel. The Lagoon 450 built from around 2011 to 2020 used a forward bulkhead that was tabbed and bonded to the hull rather than built in heavier. And on some of those boats, that bulkhead started to warp and crack. Now, here is where I have to be careful 'cause this is exactly where the lazy AI channels get it wrong and the comment section eats them alive. Around 1,100 of these hulls were built. Lagoon heard from roughly 155 owners, and a smaller number of boats were actually repaired or in repair. And the company's own brand director said that of the boats they inspected, about 80 showed no deformation at all. So the honest verdict is not that lagoons are junk. The honest verdict is narrower and far more useful. One model, one stretch of build years, one bulkhead, and a known repair. You survey for it, you price it in, and you walk in with your eyes open instead of believing a stranger in a polo shirt. Which brings up the thing half the internet gets backwards, the sail drive. A sail drive is a leg that drops straight through the bottom of the boat, and a rubber diaphragm is what keeps the ocean out. Volvo says replace that diaphragm about every 7 years. Yamar says 5. The scary videos tell you sail drives just fail and sink boats. That is mostly noise. In the real world, those diaphragms often last 10, 15, even 20 years. The real risk is quieter and cheaper to prevent. Neglect the anodes and the aluminum leg corrodes. Let the seal go past its date, and your insurance company has a reason to deny the claim. So, nobody needs to panic over a sail drive. You just read the maintenance log before you fall in love with the boat sitting on top of it. Down near the bottom of the ranking, you have the boats that are fine for what they are as long as you are honest about what that is. A Gemini E is affordable, narrow enough to fit a normal slip, and a lot of people have happily lived on one up and down the intracoastal and over to the Bahamas. But the bridge deck sits low, so it slaps and slams in a chop, and it was built as a coastal boat, not an ocean boat. Buy one for the ditch and the islands, and you will be happy. Take it offshore expecting a manta, and you will not. And if you want the real sleeper in this price range, look at an older PDQ. It was built for families instead of charter fleets. It carries its bridge deck higher than a Gemini, so it pounds far less, and a clean one can still slip in under the money everyone else is spending. Nobody talks about it, which is exactly why it is cheap. And the very bottom of this ranking is the easiest spot of all to avoid because it has nothing to do with the badge on the transom. The worst catamaran you can buy is any cord-holed boat of any name, bought pretty and bought fast with no survey and no moisture meter. That is the one that turns a dream into a 70,000 bill behind a panel you never pulled. Now, before the captains and surveyors fill the comments, let me knock down the 4 myths I know are coming because getting these wrong is what kills the cheap channels. Myth 1 is that all lagoons are junk. False, and you already know why. It comes down to one model, one stretch of years, and one bulkhead. Myth 2 is that sail drives always sink boats. That one is misleading at best. Keep the anodes fed and the seal in date, and that leg will outlive the loan you bought it with. Myth 3 is that charter boats are all worn out. Not automatically. A charter boat has hard hours, but it also has documented maintenance. So you survey for the hours instead of running from the badge. Myth 4 is that balsa or foam core always rots. It only rots when water gets in through hardware nobody's sealed. Keep the water out and a cord deck lasts for decades. So walk that same road jack stands again, and you will see it differently now because the most reliable catamaran on that dock is not the one with the prettiest brochure. It is the one with solid glass under the waterline and an honest survey behind it. The full playbook is in that link if you ever get close to signing. Now, the next one. There is a single diesel that quietly outlasts almost every other engine on these boats. And the brokers will walk you right past it every time. That is the boat and the engine I am breaking down next. Click it.